these were pretty explicit photos, which she tries to act as, these were kind of glamorous nudes. I don't really think they, in my opinion, they really weren't. But, we all are entitled to our opinions now, aren't we?
All right, folks, we need to talk about something that's been surfacing as Donald Trump desperately tries to hide his dark past with Jeffrey Epstein. Because Melania Trump's background and how she met Donald are inextricably tied to the same world of modeling agencies, wealthy men, and young women from Eastern Europe that Epstein operated in. And while Trump wants everyone focused on anything else, we need to connect these dots and ask some very serious questions about what was really going on when Donald met Melania in 1998. Let's start with the timeline because context matters. When Donald Trump met Melania in 1998, what was Trump doing around that time? He was gallivanting around with Jeffrey Epstein. That's one way to put it. The photos that Democrats on the House Oversight Committee released showed some absolutely disgusting stuff. And we know about the grotesque things that Trump and Epstein were getting into with their modeling agencies. It was horrific. The photos revealed Trump condoms at Epstein's place, photos of Trump with young girls, extreme restraints, and other disturbing items. This was Trump's world, Trump's circle, Trump's friends. By the way, I am trying to do my best to gather all the information I can for you and share it with you. Please leave your likes and comments, and I would be grateful if you subscribed. Let's continue. So in 1998, during this period when Trump is hanging around with Epstein constantly, Donald meets Melania. Where do they meet? According to Melania's version of events, they meet at a location called the Kit Kat Club in Manhattan. Melania likes to refer to this as a glamorous place where editors and models were mingling and there was camaraderie in the air. But the Kit Kat Club in New York was not some glamorous venue. It was a grimy club, and the circumstances of how they met raise serious questions. There was this guy, Paolo Zampolli, who's now a United States ambassador, a top government official appointed by Donald Trump. Back in 1998, Zampolli ran what he called modeling agencies that would bring younger Eastern European women or girls from Eastern Europe to the United States. Then he would throw parties where these women would be introduced to wealthy, powerful men in the United States. On this particular evening in 1998, Donald Trump met Melania at one of these events. Even if you take Melania's own account from her book where she talks about meeting Donald, she mentions he was with another girl at the time. She describes this whole romantic moment of seeing each other, but the setting is literally a party organized by someone who brought Eastern European women to meet wealthy American men. That's not a meet cute. That's a transaction venue. Let's look at Melania's background because she's lied about significant parts of it. Her biography used to say that she was born April 26, 1970 in Slovenia, began her modeling career at age 16, and signed with a modeling agency in Milan at 18. Which agency? What's the name of the modeling agency in Milan? She never says. The biography also claimed that after obtaining a degree in design and architecture at university in Slovenia, Melania was jetting between photo shoots in Paris and Milan, finally settling in New York in 1996. Here's the problem. Melania Trump never earned a university degree in architecture. She dropped out of college after her freshman year, according to her biographers, but she still claims to have a degree from a university in Slovenia. That's a lie. A documented lie. And if she's lying about her educational credentials, what else is she lying about? What Melania was doing around this time was nude modeling. And I'm not trying to disrespect nude modeling as an art form. But these weren't glamorous artistic nudes. These were explicit photos that she tries to pass off as glamorous art when they were pretty grimy work. She can have her opinion about what they were, and I can have mine. We're all entitled to our opinions. So around this time, she meets Donald in 1998, they get married several years later, and then Melania gets an Einstein visa. That's a visa reserved for people with extraordinary talent. She cuts ahead of everyone else waiting for visas because supposedly she has extraordinary abilities. In what? Modeling. What extraordinary modeling work has anyone ever seen from Melania besides those explicit nude photos? What major campaigns did she lead? What covers did she grace? Where's the evidence of this extraordinary talent? She gets citizenship when she marries Trump, but she got this Einstein visa first. then through a process that's often derided by the right wing as chain migration, where someone who's a citizen brings in their family. She brought her entire family into the United States. The irony is stunning. Trump and his supporters rail against chain migration constantly, but Melania used that exact process to bring in her parents. And there are photos of Melania, Donald Trump, Epstein, and Ghislaine Maxwell together. Multiple photos of them at parties together, hanging out together. You can infer whatever you want from those photos, or infer nothing at all, but they exist. They documented a social relationship between all four of them during this period. Fast forward to when Trump was out of office between his first and second terms. Melania's fashion stylists and makeup people were getting paid hundreds of thousands of dollars from Trump's political action committees. Despite Trump claiming to be a billionaire, the struggling farmers and people barely making ends meet who received those emails from Trump asking, "Can you make a personal sacrifice for me?" their donations go to political action committees. And those PACs pay for Melania's stylists and makeup artists to the tune of hundreds of thousands of dollars. So Trump is using money donated by working class supporters who think they're funding his political campaign, and it's going to pay for Melania's personal beauty team. That's not campaign expenses. That's using political donations as a personal piggy bank to fund the First Lady's appearance maintenance. With all of this as background, with Trump's grotesque Epstein connections documented in the released photos showing Trump condoms, restraints, and other disturbing items at Epstein's properties, let's fast forward to this week when some very strange things happened. During a Christmas party, Donald Trump referred to his son Barron in an extremely weird way. He didn't say our son, he said Melania's child. He called Barron her boy, like he's not also Trump's son. Listen to this clip. Trump says he knows whatever Melania is working on is going to be great for children because Melania loves children, and she has a wonderful boy, and she's proud of her boy. Her boy. Not our son, not our boy. Her boy. That's a bizarre way for a father to talk about his only child with his current wife. What's going on there? You also need to remember that when Melania was pregnant with Barron and right after Barron was born, Donald Trump was having affairs with multiple women. Stormy Daniels right around when Barron was born. Karen McDougal during that same period, others. There are photos of Trump, Melania, and McDougal all together while Trump was sleeping with McDougal behind Melania's back. That's who Trump is. That's what he does. And you can see it in Melania's face sometimes. Watch how she looked at Trump during a speech where he talked about Steve Scalise getting shot. Trump said he went to the hospital when they thought Scalise might not make it, and Scalise's wife was devastated, crying, inconsolable. Then Trump adds, "I found out that night you have a wife that loves you dearly. I know many wives would not even be crying." Think about what Trump is saying there. He's openly stating that many wives wouldn't cry if their husbands were shot and dying. That's his view of marriage, of relationships. And Melania is standing there absolutely stone-faced while Trump says this. No reaction, no emotion, nothing. Like she's completely checked out. Then Trump starts mocking a Somalian community while talking about a Republican congressman, and you can watch Melania's face remain expressionless. She's just standing there like a prop, not engaging, not reacting, fulfilling her contractual obligation to appear at events, but clearly not invested in any of it. Which brings us to Melania's recent attempt to read a Christmas book to kids. The headline was, Melania Trump mocked after struggling to read Christmas book to 6 kids. Now, I want to be very clear about something. We should never mock people who are trying to learn English. It's a difficult language, and immigrants learning English deserve support and encouragement, not mockery. We should never mock the way people speak. But here's where the hypocrisy becomes relevant. Melania has been in the United States since 1996. That's almost 30 years. And she really struggled to read this simple children's book to kids. She couldn't get through basic sentences smoothly. Watch this footage and think about how Trump and Caroline Leavitt and the entire MAGA movement treat immigrants who've been here for decades and don't speak perfect English. They mock them. They demonize them. They use their language skills as evidence they don't belong. But Melania, who's been here since 1996 and still struggles with a children's book, she gets a pass. She's married to Trump, so her English difficulties are fine. She got an Einstein visa for extraordinary talent despite no evidence of such talent. She used chain migration to bring her family despite Trump attacking that process. She's treated completely differently than any other immigrant would be because of who she's married to. The contrast became even more stark with the Caroline Leavitt nephew situation. The Trump regime tried to paint the mother of Leavitt's nephew as some foreign immigrant who has no relationship with the child and barely speaks English. But when that mother was interviewed, she was incredibly articulate. She had a far better command of English than Melania does. It wasn't even close. This woman who Trump's administration locked up and tried to deport spoke more clearly and fluently than the First Lady. That woman made a powerful point in her interview. She said to Leavitt, "Just because you went to a Catholic school doesn't make you a good Catholic. You're a mother now. You should know how you would feel if you were in my shoes. If somebody did this to you, nobody's above the law. This could happen to anybody." And she's right. She's not the first person this has happened to, and she won't be the last. There are thousands of families and children being separated daily. Where does it end? When does it stop? That's the question we should all be asking. The Trump regime is terrorizing immigrant communities, separating families, deporting people who've been here for decades, going after American citizens with Hispanic last names. Meanwhile, Melania Trump, who came here in 1996 under questionable circumstances through modeling agency connections, who lied about her university degree, who got an Einstein visa despite no extraordinary talent, who used chain migration to bring in her family, she's celebrated as First Lady, while people with more education, better English skills, and deeper roots in America are being attacked and deported. And let's not forget Melania's plagiarism of Michelle Obama. At the Republican National Convention, Melania literally ripped off word-for-word sections of Michelle's speech. The clips show Melania saying the exact same phrases: "You work hard for what you want, your word is your bond, you treat people with dignity and respect." It was the same speech delivered with the same cadence. Blatant plagiarism that got brushed aside because she's married to Trump. So here's where I am on all of this. After we get the full Epstein files, I think serious attention needs to be paid to how Donald Trump met Melania, who facilitated that meeting, what those modeling agency operations really were, and whether the same trafficking and exploitation dynamics that Epstein engaged in were present in the world where Trump met his future wife. These are questions. These are First Amendment protected opinions and questions that deserve answers. When you have Trump spending years hanging around with Epstein, when you have modeling agencies bringing young Eastern European women to parties for wealthy American men, when you have someone getting an Einstein visa with no demonstrated extraordinary talent, when you have lies about educational credentials, these things warrant investigation. I'm not saying I have all the answers. I'm saying we should be asking these questions. We should be demanding transparency about Trump's connections to these modeling agencies and the world he operated in during the late 90s. We should understand how visa fraud might have been committed. We should know whether the same exploitation that destroyed so many lives through Epstein's operation was present in adjacent networks. Melania came to this country through a system that Trump now demonizes. She benefited from policies Trump now attacks. She used processes Trump calls chain migration. And she's married to a man whose best friend during the period he met her was Jeffrey Epstein, a convicted sex trafficker and pedophile. Those facts alone create questions that deserve answers. The photos of Trump, Melania, Epstein, and Maxwell together aren't proof of wrongdoing by Melania, but they are proof of social connections during a period when horrible things were happening. They are proof that Melania was in proximity to Epstein's operation, whether she knew what was happening or not. And given what we now know about how Epstein operated, given the photos of Trump's involvement, those connections matter. I want to be clear that I'm not accusing Melania of crimes. I'm asking questions about her background, about how she came to this country, about the circumstances of how she met Trump, about whether she was truthful in her visa applications, about whether the modeling agencies that facilitated her introduction to Trump were engaged in the same kind of exploitation we know existed in that world. These are legitimate questions, and in an administration that's attacking immigrants relentlessly, that's separating families and deporting people who've been here for decades, that's demanding absolute adherence to immigration law from everyone except apparently the First Lady, these questions become even more important. Melania Trump is not responsible for her husband's crimes, but she benefited from a system of privilege and exception that other immigrants don't get. And in an administration using immigration enforcement as a weapon against vulnerable people, that double standard deserves to be called out loudly and repeatedly. So let me know what you think in the comments. Do you think these questions about Melania's background are fair? Do you think the modeling agency connections warrant more investigation? Do you think the Einstein visa and chain migration deserve scrutiny given how Trump attacks those same processes? And do you think the photos of Melania with Epstein and Maxwell should prompt more questions about what she knew and when she knew it? Hit subscribe. Let's get to 6 million. And let's keep demanding answers about Trump's Epstein connections and everyone who was part of that world, because the full truth hasn't come out yet, and we deserve to know everything.